I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. Check me out. Hey y'all, I am here to report on my own 30-day challenge. So I set a challenge for myself in which I would attempt to consume 120 grams of protein every day for 30 days, or as close to it as possible. Now that might seem like such a very high, which it is, amount, and a very random number, which it is not. Let me explain. The reason I landed upon 120 grams is because it was the amount needed in order to fulfill my 40% goal of my macro allotment. So let me explain. So being that I'm an endomorph, I configured my macros so that the primary focus of my eating plan was one of the best nutrients for the endomorph body type, and that is protein. So pre-op, my focus would have been on fat. Before I had BSG, I would have chosen to focus more so on fat. However, as a result of having BSG, it's imperative that you consume enough protein. So therefore, I opted to focus on protein. So in my 12-month video, my 12-month surgiversary or post-op video, I stated that I was going to try and stick to 1,200 calories for at least the next 6 months. So my current caloric allowance is 1,200 calories a day. And so since 1,200 calories is my max allotment, that equated to 120 grams of protein, since it was set to be 40% of my calories. So 40% of my calories comes from, or should come from, protein. That's how I landed upon the number 120. Now, most days I came very close. Some days I didn't. However, I did get over 100 grams every single day. So in the beginning, it was extremely hard. I'm not gonna even lie. And it was hard because it seemed like it was so much to eat and drink, and not even just the protein amount, but just the calorie amount, which is so strange because right around my surgiversary, I noticed that I started to exceed my calories. And at that time, I think I was about 1,000 calories. I was either 1,000 calories or I was at 900 calories. And I noticed that I was exceeding my calories, so therefore I bumped them up to 1,200 calories, and I said I was going to attempt to stick there for at least 6 months. Before, I used to reassess, how hungry I was every 3 months, and then I would increase my calories. However, I said once I hit 1,200, I'm gonna try my hardest to stay there for a minimum of 6 months. And in doing so, I was doing okay when I wasn't focusing so heavily on these numbers the way that I am now. I'm trying to produce a little bit different results from my body, especially that I am a year post-op. And so before I started focusing, I had no problems getting to 1,200. Occasionally I would go over, not by much, maybe like 100, 150, which can be a lot, but nonetheless, when I tried this 30-day challenge, for whatever reason, it was so difficult to get to that 1200 calories most of the time. And I didn't think that since I was so far off on some days within my calories, I didn't think that I was going to hit my secondary goal of 100 grams of protein a day. Now, of course, like I stated, I would have liked to get to 120 every day. Every day I didn't, but most days I got really close. However, like I said, I never went below 100 grams. And somewhere around here, I'm gonna put in some footage so you can actually see what I did for the entire month. So I started it at the beginning of August. I think it was August 2nd. I believe that was the first day. And then the last day was August 31st. And so you'll see, you know, my results from those 30 days. But like I said, in the beginning, it was very hard. Additionally, it was so hard because I practice intermittent fasting habitually now. Like it's become second nature for me for the most part. And so I didn't think I was going to be able to get in that amount of protein within such a small window. And like I stated, at first I wasn't really doing that good, I'm not gonna lie. I made it, but what I mean was I was struggling to get everything in my eating window. I do 16/8, but when I work, I kind of immerse myself in my work, and so I let hours go by between my meals. Sometimes I let hours go by before like after my 16, I should start right away. So that would give me from like 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. to eat. Sometimes I don't start right at 16. I will usually go over to like 17 or 18, sometimes even 20 something hours, and then that only leaves me a few hours to get in everything that I need to. I know I shouldn't, it's just when I'm focused, and so I try to stay focused. And yeah, so to help me focus more so on the times, to make sure that I could get in all of my calories and protein within my eating window, I created a sample timetable and a schedule that I tried my best to follow as closely as possible, or at least track the times so that I know when I ate and drank, and I could also have an idea of when I should or could have another meal if it seemed like I was struggling to hit my numbers or my meals on certain days. And like I stated, I did occasionally, because I wouldn't always start my eating within that 8-hour window. My fault. So it would have been impossible for me to only eat that amount of protein since having VSG. So protein shakes had to be my primary source of protein, and the rest was mainly amassed through eating meat, you know, eggs, nuts, and protein bars. And so I called my plan a 3-2-1 plan, because the goal for me was to consume 3 protein shakes, 2 snacks, and 1 real meal a day in order to make sure that I hit my protein numbers. So I planned this whole 3-2-1 thing. And like I stated in my video on protein shakes, I had to make sure that I was consuming the protein shakes with the highest amounts of protein in order for me to hit those numbers. So, results. I am happy to say that by the end of the challenge, I lost 10 pounds. Ooh, yummy, yummy, yummy. So I know 10 pounds doesn't sound like too much to some, and it really isn't, but to me, and for my body type and the way my body is set up, 10 pounds was an extremely significant loss. because I am such a slow loser, and it's rare that I lose 10 pounds in 1 month. So seeing that was extremely exciting, and it made me very happy. But this is what I noticed. Now I am making this video approximately 2 weeks, closer to 3 weeks after the challenge ended. I'm putting in my results now, and what I noticed was that as soon as I stopped the high protein, I gained back 5 pounds. And so what I attributed that gain to was it being that time of the month, because at the very end of the high protein 30-day challenge, it started. So I automatically assumed that the 5 pound gain came from that, but that wasn't the case, because 3 of those 5 pounds still remained. I always gain weight during that time, so I'm like, okay, well, this is what that gain is from. But no, 3 of those 5 pounds stayed. And so I attribute that to possibly the increase in carb percentage, because like I said, for those 30 days I was really focused in making sure that I hit my protein numbers, and I was doing it, like I said, primarily because I was having 3 protein shakes a day. But I've intentionally decreased that just to see what would happen. Like I told you, I experiment, to find out certain things and see how my body responds. So I intentionally decreased 1 of those protein shakes a day, and I started to eat a few more carbohydrates here and there. And like I said, I have to attribute the gain to the increase in the carbohydrate percentage, because I've never exceeded my caloric allotment since the challenge ended. I didn't exceed it during the challenge, but I haven't exceeded it since the challenge ended. And the only thing that's changed is the higher percentage of carbohydrates. So it had to be primarily attributed to that. Okay. So one of the terrible side effects to increasing my protein so much, or having so much protein or such a high protein intake, was the constipation. Now, as a result of having VSG, you are much more constipated than you probably would have normally been. So take that and multiply that times 3 or 4, and it was horrible. The only thing that I think personally was a saving grace for me was my Mag07 and my Senna. Without them, I don't even know if I could have kept eating all of that protein. But I also noticed that I did not have as much water as I would have normally had if I wasn't focused. And my rationale was, okay, well, I'm getting much more liquids than normal, so I decreased the amount of fluids that I was drinking and balanced them out, my protein shake liquid with my water intake, or my regular drink intake, like my sugar-free drinks and calorie-free drinks, and I balanced those 2 out, or I added those 2 together in order to account for my 64 ounces of water. Bad, I know, bad. I shouldn't have did that. I should have still just had my 64 ounces of water in addition to my protein shake. So I know that now, that's why I was so constipated. But like I said, I won't do that again, and I will add in more fiber, in the sense of in things like Metamucil or psyllium husk. Those 2 work very well. So like I said, that was just my fault, but I was struggling so much to get in what I already had to get in that I basically rationalized it as being okay because I was getting more liquid from the protein shakes. I won't do that no more. Bad. So the takeaways for me are that higher protein works very well for my body. I mean, that kind of goes without saying because I am an endomorph. And it works really well, especially when I'm very close to or at my macros, like extremely well. Higher protein also gets and keeps me much fuller, and so as a result, I noticed that when I eat higher protein, I consume less than I would if I was strictly calorie counting or, eating more carbs than normal. So I tend to get closer to my entire caloric allotment or even exceed it when I'm simply calorie counting or if I'm eating more carbs, because I'm usually a lot hungrier more often. So like I said, the protein keeps me much more full and I'm not as hungry as I would be. Another thing that I've come to the conclusion of, and I'm currently experimenting with again, I know, I guess I'm some kind of weird ass mad scientist, I don't know. I'm just trying to do what's most optimal for my body, and that's why I have a tendency to pay so much attention to what I consume, how I consume it, and in what amounts that I consume it. It's very important for me to track and pay attention to things now, because I wasn't before. I was just eating, willy-nilly, and I basically lived to eat. Now I want to eat to live. Occasionally I want to have the few days here and there where I just enjoy my food and enjoy whatever it is I'm eating. But that's not to say that I can't enjoy what I'm eating and pay attention to it at the same time. So that's why, now I do the things that I do and they work for me. So I feel like I personally need to keep my carbs at or below 20% of my daily allotment. And in fact, after reviewing my numbers from the 30-day challenge, I recalibrated my macros, and so now they are set that way to where the carbohydrates are 15% of my intake and my protein is at 45%, and then the fat has been set to 40%. Those again are extremely high numbers, but looking at my averages, and I'll try to put the video in again somewhere, I noticed that when I was hitting 40%, 41%, 42%, I was hitting these types of numbers. Some days I think I even hit 53% and stuff like that of protein during the challenge, and I'm very happy and satisfied with my results. So that's more than likely what I'm going to have to do. And I know, again, I won't hit these numbers or the exact percentages every day, but I want to get as close as possible from now on. So basically, tracking and consistency are extremely important to me, so that I can see what I'm eating, how much I'm eating, and how it's affecting my body. And so in general, I think it should be that way for most people, because that way you'll have more of a visual idea of what you're eating, how much you're eating, and exactly how it's affecting you. And so this is why consistency and tracking have been such a huge focus in my life, and the way it's looking, doing so is working very well for me. So I plan to keep doing it. So that's pretty much all for this video. And by the way, if you haven't done so already, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you can keep up with me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Hit myself in the face. Bye.